This evening, it is my pleasure to present the Secular Student Alliance's 2011 Freethought Backbone Award. The Freethought Backbone Award is a way for the student community to recognize someone who's made such a contribution to the movement that raw talent was simply not enough. That in addition to that, their contribution has to have also taken years to make. It is a way for the students to recognize people who've lived the kinds of lives those students want to live. The Secular Student Alliance gave out the first award, the first Freethought Backbone Award, in 2004 to Michael Newdow for his persistent attempts to convince the Supreme Court of the United States of America that forcing children to say under God did nothing to make the United States indivisible. Other past award winners have included the candidate without a prayer and president of the Secular Coalition for America, Herb Silverman, the founder of the Institute for Humanist Studies, Larry Jones, the first Harvard chaplain, humanist chaplain, Tom Farrick, the past director of the Secular Coalition for America, Lori Lippman Brown, the Freedom from Religion Foundation co-president, Dan Barker, and last year, Abington versus Schimpf plaintiff, Ellery Schimpf. As you might have noticed from the people who have won these awards, that their histories of activism, by and large, have been old enough to vote. Tonight's winner, Hemant Mehta. You can cheer, I guess. Don't get a big head, Hemant. It's no good. Is quite precocious, but he's only 28, and despite his proclivity for being precocious, he did not begin his atheism activism career when he was 10. But as a friend of mine remarked during our first conversation about Hemant, it's totally unfair that someone that young has accomplished so much. And that was back in 2008. So I know you're all eager to listen to Hemant speak, but indulge me for a moment as I recount just a few of the accomplishments that have made Hemant an inspiration to me for years, if not yet quite 18 years. So back in 2004, the same year that Michael Newdow received the first Backbone Award, Hemant was the founder and one of the leaders of Students Without Religious Dogma at the University of Illinois, Chicago. Shortly after starting his local group, he went on to join the board of directors of the Secular Student Alliance, and after 1 year on the board as a member at large, he became chair of the board. And while chair, he oversaw the organization growing from the point where we had about 45 campus affiliates to over 150 campus affiliates. And even though Hemant has been term limited out of the SSA board, I don't think there's anyone at SSA that would disagree when I suggest that Hemant played an absolutely pivotal role in setting the stage for where the Secular Student Alliance is today, with over 266 campus affiliate groups, and as of today, 10 staff members. But of course, it's not just Hemant's accomplishments with the SSA that make him inspirational. So, history has a funny way of making people's greatness seem inevitable. But you have to understand how insane it sounded to me in 2006 when Hemant, in my hotel room, after a Secular Coalition for America board meeting, came to me and said that he wanted to sell his soul on eBay. He was hoping to get enough money to buy an iPod. But of course you know that less than a year later, Hemant did the thing that has made me the most jealous of him the entire time I've known him, which is that he has one of those hash mark drawings of people they put on the front of the Wall Street Journal. When they put your picture on the front of the Wall Street Journal, there's a story about his eBay activity, and obviously he published I Sold My Soul on eBay. And I'm sure you all know that eBay won't actually let you sell your soul. Something about it not existing, I don't know. Or intangible, I guess there's a distinction some people make. I don't get it. But anyway, he really sold the right to send him to church. And the man that bought that, Jim Henderson, worked for an organization called Off the Map. That's the man that won Hemat's soul. Anyway. And the unofficial mission of Off the Map is helping Christians be normal. And I feel like a big part of what has driven Hemant's activism has been helping atheists be normal. Now, I know you're all normal, so present company accepted, but In the good way. So you're healthy, maybe that's better than normal. Anyway, that's a discussion for later. But I remember in 2006 being at an atheist conference where Hemant was presenting on the profound notion that we might be able to be kind to the people that we disagreed with, and somebody from the audience standing up and shouting profanities at him. So, and what I mean by being normal is being engaged in the mainstream and having civil dialogues and relationships, at least some of the time, with Christians and other people of faith. And that desire seems to be central to what Hemant posts at friendlyatheist.com. A desire to be fully atheist and not to soft pedal that or in any way back away from any part of that identity. But also being respectfully engaged with people who see the world differently than we see it. And of course, the reason that works so well for Hemant is that he doesn't back away. And reading some of Hemant's posts over the last few years, the last couple of years especially, I have to say that I've been wondering if maybe the friendlyatheist.com is not the right URL for your blog anymore. That maybe it should be the, I want to be friendly, but why are you people making it so hard right now, atheist.com? And when Hemant does things like supporting undercover or not so undercover activists going into anti-gay rights events, just as one example of many, it's clear that while Hemant is definitely here to make friends, that he's not about to compromise his values. And I also believe that it's this desire to have atheists be in touch and respectfully engaged with the mainstream that has led him to become the chair of the board of directors for the Foundation Beyond Belief, which works to help people live their values as atheists, as agnostics, as humanists, by helping their fellow human beings and also flying those labels clear and proud. So it gives me great and profound honor to present to Hemant the 2011 Secular Student Alliance Freethought Backbone Award. What do you want us, Kelly? Yep. Okay, and then now for the real award. You're gonna want to get a picture of this too, Kelly.
Oh boy.
I need you, baby.
Oh my god. This is scary.
I love child.
Party in the dorms tonight. I gotta look at this thing now while I talk. All right. Thank you so much, August. That's one of the nicest things anyone's ever said as an introduction or in general. And by the way, before you leave, get a chance to talk to August and thank him, because none of this would be possible without him at all. So. If any of you have ever had me at your school or seen me give a talk before, I usually don't use notes, or if anything, I might draw like a rough outline. I actually wrote stuff down for this because I was so nervous about this. And part of what made me nervous is exactly what August said. When you consider the people who have received the Backbone Award in the past, I mean, Ellery Shemp and Dan Barker and Lori Lippman Brown, Herb Silverman, I mean, they're personal heroes of mine. And, I was trying to figure out, besides having really strong backbones, what is it that they all have in common? And more importantly, why the hell do I deserve to be in the mix with them? And that question's been on my mind for a while, but I think I figured out what it is that makes them really amazing. And I guess it's not really that remarkable when you think about it. It's not just their lawsuits that they file or their proximity to power. What they have in common, and maybe what I might share with them, if anything, is that they never hesitate to be honest about their views when they need to be. Which means, not only are they special, I think a lot of people in this room would match that description as well. They stood up for their beliefs when it mattered the most, and even if that meant losing the people close to them, or losing an election in some cases, they're never out to pick petty fights with every religious person they meet, but it doesn't mean they're going to back down from a conversation or debate. They're also kind, pleasant, approachable people, like the type of people that destroy that stereotype that says we can't be good without God. So in that sense, I think a lot of people here would fall into that same category. And while it may not seem like a huge deal, the fact that so many of you in this room are out and proud about your atheism is something I don't think a lot of people would have expected just a decade or two ago. But here's what I want to talk to you about. Coming out as an atheist and being public about your atheism, that's great. But that's step one. And what we got to do is figure out what to do after that. Like, once you're public about your atheism and that weight is off your shoulders, which, if any of you have had that happen, it's such a relief to finally tell someone. But you have to think about, well, okay, now you're an atheist and people know you're an atheist. Now what? What are you going to do with that? Do you try to change the stereotypes people have about atheism? Do you try to deconvert everyone that you meet? Do you write about it? Do you talk about it? Do you try to become the religious right's worst enemy? The options are out there. One thing we all have in common, though, is that we're really passionate about getting people to think critically. Definitely about religion, but in life in general, that's what we want people to do. So the question becomes, how can we best do that regardless of what we do with our lives? So let me give you the Cliff's Notes version of my personal story here. I think, Dan Barker and Lori Lippman Brown will tell you they had no idea they were going to become atheist activists, even when they were in college. And the same thing was the case for me. About 10 years ago today, when I was starting college, my future plans entirely involved going to medical school, mostly because I'm Indian. And I thought biology was kind of cool. But math and blogging and activism of any sort, just not on the radar at all. And like August said, I started a college group, a college atheist group with a friend of mine because I wanted to meet other atheists. But what happened is when I started getting involved with that group, I became really energized about our cause. I applied to be an intern at the Center for Inquiry. I ran for the Secular Student Alliance Board and was fortunate enough to get elected. And I started paying attention to what the organizations in our movement were saying about the various church-state issues. And around this time, I started medical school. So all that activism, all that interest had to be put on the back burner because you really just don't have time to do anything else when you're in that environment. And my grades in med school, they were fine, but a few months into my M1 year, sitting in the lectures, I remember listening to the professors talking about whatever subject they were talking about, and instead of asking the good question, which is, how can what they're saying help me become a better doctor in the future, I stopped asking myself that question, and I started thinking, this professor's really bad. And if you just give me that professor's notes for one day, I could come back and give a much better lecture on the same topic tomorrow. And if that's your focus, you have to wonder if you're doing this, if you're really on the right track there. And about midway through my first year, I began to wonder how I could get out of medical school. And not only that, but okay, let's say I leave, what do I even do? I've never even considered doing anything else. And that's probably the hardest decision I've ever had to make in my life. And I think what eventually pushed me over the top was, I wanted to become a doctor because I wanted to help people, like every doctor wants to do, but I figured I could probably do that in some other ways. And there were some other factors too. I was dating someone at the time, but I couldn't even see her because I had to study. And I saw these atheist groups, like all of your atheist groups, doing really amazing things on campus, but I had no part to play in that, and I wanted to do more. And if you go into grad school or you go into law school or medical school, you're not going to succeed unless your heart is fully into it, and mine wasn't. So I asked them to let me take a year off, and they let me do that. And so I had that. I had a year off to explore my other options, but in the back of my head I knew I wasn't going to go back, which, by the way, that's a fun conversation to have with mom and dad. So I was like, okay, what do I do now? So I started taking night classes in order to teach, because I figured, well, I like to do that, and maybe I can still help people in that way. And I ended up working for a test prep company during the day, and I started working as a non-certified tutor at a high school that I'm not very fond of. And I basically lived on a check-by-check basis for 2 years before I got my first full-time teaching job. And now I get to work with like amazing kids all day. I get to teach them how to think critically all the time. And for some reason, they pay me to do that, which is crazy. Not a lot, but they pay me to do that. And you'll hear way more about that side of me tomorrow, but needless to say, I really love what I do now. But here's the thing, something else happened. All that time before I began teaching, when I had that couple years to kind of figure out what I was doing, all of a sudden I had more free time than I ever did in med school. So I got to do other things. Like I helped coached the speech forensics team at that high school I was working at. I could give a bit more time to the Secular Student Alliance, and I became the chair of that board. Like August said, something happened on eBay that got some attention, but that got me started in blogging, which, not a lot of people were doing it at the time, but I guess I just kept at it. It's kind of hard to measure what sort of impact a website has, because you never hear from most of the people who ever visit the site. But I know the readers of my site have raised a lot of money for a lot of incredible causes. They pitched in over $30,000 for a scholarship for college for Damon Fowler. They volunteered to go undercover at an anti-gay training camp for young people. They attended an anti-vaccination conference. They sat through a Christian homeschooling convention. Mike Brownstein did that. He's right here. And that's just in the past year. And what's really cool, too, is they helped me shape my own views on a lot of topics. But, more than anything, doing the blogging and being involved with this movement has just made me really comfortable to be able to say I'm an atheist. Like, it's just a non-issue anymore. It's just a given. It's not even shocking anymore. Like, I get more crap for the word friendly in the title of my website than I ever got for the word atheist, But you know what? Maybe you've seen that in your own groups too. I mean, your atheism, when you're surrounded by a group like this, it almost becomes a non-issue in communities like this, because we all get it. We know you're an atheist, and we get why you're an atheist. And so we get that. We don't have to talk about that anymore. We can talk about so many other issues relating to atheism besides to justify why we don't believe in God. So I hope that being part of these communities, online or in person, it makes discussions with religious people in our lives a little easier. Because when we're confident about our views, it's harder to faze us. So now when the topic of religion comes up with a theist, I'm way more confident now than I ever used to be in college. Like, I know there's nothing they could say that I haven't heard before, and I feel good about being able to respond to anything they throw my way. Maybe you feel the same way. And not only that, I'm not shocked by the atheist word. Like, it's easy for me to use it when I'm around other people not involved in our movement. It's not like I shake someone's hand and say, like, hi, I'm Hemant, and I'm godless. But I don't hide my views if the opportunity to talk about it comes up. And it always comes up, because when my friends and family and colleagues ask me what I do outside of work, I don't really feel scared or hesitant anymore to tell them I write about atheism, or I work with nonprofit groups for humanists and atheists. I don't know that I deserve a Backbone Award for just being public about my beliefs, but I guess if you told me 10 years ago how open I would be about them now, and what I do for a living, I'd be in a little bit of shock. So let me tell you how that plays out in my life now. Because at work, that's an issue. If I'm a public school teacher and I'm an open atheist, how does that come into play? Well, my colleagues, my other math teachers who know I'm an atheist, they will now ask me to pray for a snow day, not to make me mad or anything, but because they just tell me, hey, if you say it, it'll mean more coming from you. But it's not a bad thing. This year, and this was probably the coolest thing that has happened, I had a couple students come up to me toward the end of the school year this past year and say they wanted to start a Secular Student Alliance group. And they asked if I would be their sponsor, which is awesome and weird, and I'm a little hands-off at this point, but I told them, look, let's have a meeting about this. And I told them, look, if you want to start an SSA group, more power to you. This can't be my group. And I don't want to roll in this. I'll be happy to sign papers and be there when you need me, but this has to be their group. So what do you guys want to do with this group? Actually, it was 3 girls. What do you girls want to do with this group? And here's what they said. They said, well, we want to help break down the stereotypes about atheists, and we want to let people know that it's okay not to believe in God, and we want to do a lot of volunteer work, and we want to get people in our school involved with discussions about religion. Oh my God, I had nothing to do with that. That was what they said. That's what they wanted to start. How cool is that? And I've said this before, I don't talk about religion in the classroom, but by being open about it in my private life, I think the students who may come across the site on their own, which happens, I think they feel that they can be more open about their atheism with their own friends, and they can have that discussion, and they can have that dialogue at that age when so many of us start thinking about religion. So that's work. How does my atheism impact my family? My parents still don't really care for my atheism. They don't really get it. They don't know why I do all this stuff. But it's to the point now where if I'm ever at a family function, my mom will come up to me and she's like, "Did you talk to that person over there?" No, I don't know who that is. Why? That person doesn't believe in God either. Go talk to them. Okay. I had an uncle who I've never talked to about religion who just stopped me and said, "By the way, I agree with you." All right. I had a family friend of my mom's just stop me at a wedding of someone I didn't even know. And he just handed me an article that he had written that explained why the Hindu superstition of horoscopes and making sure you and your partner have matching horoscopes when you get married, why all of that is BS. He had written about it. He's like, "I didn't know who I could share this with, but here you go." And that's the thing, I'm fortunate that my parents never kicked me out of the house, but by being open about it, it's amazing how many other people come out of the woodwork as well. So how does all this apply to all of you? Because just like, Dan and Herb and Ellery and Lori, all of you have backbones that you need to show off. You're all atheists for the whatever you call yourself for the most part. You're all activists, and some of you have had to deal with an incredible amount of crap in the process of asserting your viewpoint. But you still don't shy away from it. You're not afraid to let the people at your schools know where you stand on controversial matters, even if you might be the only people on campus to do so, which is amazing. To paraphrase the Dan Savage line, it will get better if it sucks for you now. It will get better, and it will get easier. But what will help us make that easier is when more of us start going public with our views. So how do we even begin to do that? And for the rest of my time here, let me talk about how we begin to do that. So raise your hands. How many of you have had someone via Facebook or a stranger or a friend, anyone, tell you that they are also an atheist? Look around. That's a lot of people. Okay, keep your hands raised. If that same person told you that you're the reason they had the courage to come out as an atheist, that's pretty amazing. That's incredible. Let me read you this message. We need to keep that going. Let me read you this message. "I recently came across your blog, and I just wanted to let you know that you were such an inspiration to me, having the courage to come out as an atheist. I love your blog already, and just thanks for being my inspiration to not be afraid of almost anything." I wish I was talking about myself. I'm not. That was an email sent to Rose St. Clair from the College of William and Mary on her blog, She for Inquiry. Rose couldn't be here tonight, but what's amazing about that email that she got isn't just that Rose helped someone come out, it's that was post number 6 on her blog. That's it. And Rose also added in her posting, "I'd like to open up my own inbox as a safe haven. I check my Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube accounts often, and I'm willing and able to provide support and encouragement." How awesome is that? And why can't all of us do the same thing for people who are reading our Facebook pages, for the groups or our feeds or what have you? Let me read you one other post. "I can remember a time when I was the shyest girl in school, completely unnoticed by anyone besides my few friends. When all of this started, everything changed. I went from being afraid to even tell people I was an atheist to saying it on national television. And despite being incredibly shy, I find myself surrounded by attention at school, the negative kind. But most of the change is for the better. I've become more comfortable with myself as a result. I've met people more like me with similar interests and ideals. I no longer have to hide my geekiness. I've also discovered my voice and my passion." Jessica Alquist said that, and she deserves a round of applause wherever she is in here. And you'll hear her story soon, but Jessica added that what really changed everything for her was when J.T. Eberhard, who was moderating us earlier today with the circle here, he sent her an email introducing himself and the SSA, letting her know that she wasn't alone and that the SSA supported her in what she was doing. Again, it's that reaching out that's so vital to what we do, and it's letting people know that it's okay to be an atheist. So let me leave you now with just 5 suggestions for the next school year. I know you have a page somewhere in this amazing conference proceedings book that's a blank page, and so I'm a teacher. You're going to have a quiz, so write this down. Ways to show off your own backbone and help other people do the same. Take these ideas back to your group or just back to your own dorm room and implement them. And I hope these can help you guys at least give you a mission for the next year. All right, so number 1. If you haven't done it yet, let the people you trust know about your religious beliefs or your non-religious beliefs. Don't be a dick about it. Don't treat every conversation with a religious person as if it's a debate with a winner and a loser. Just make your views known. And that could be anything from sending a private email to a close friend or just changing the religious status on your Facebook profile. Remember that for a lot of people, you may be the first atheist or they meet, or at least they think in their heads that they've met, and how you act will affect how they see atheists for the rest of their lives. So just come out to the people you feel comfortable doing that to. Number 2, make it your personal mission this year to help another atheist go public with their beliefs. And note that I'm not saying go deconvert someone, but the atheists are already there, and I would argue that it's probably more important to get those people to be more vocal about their atheism than it is trying to deconvert people who are not quite there yet. And by the way, if you really want to help them feel comfortable about their atheism and coming out about it, that means creating an environment within your group or on your Facebook page or your blog that's an inviting place for women and people in the LGBT crowd and racial minorities, and for people who may already agree with you about God but totally disagree with you on a lot of other issues. So help them come out. Think in your head of someone you know who's a closeted atheist and see what you could do to help them go public with it. Number 3, support your fellow groups. That includes people in this room and people who can't be here today whenever you can. Let me give you another example of that. And this is from Aaron Friel of the University of Northern Iowa's Freethinkers and Inquirers. Aaron's here today, I think, right? Yeah. There you go. Aaron is not a fan of the interfaith movement, as he tends to think of it, but he heard a fellow group leader in here talk about it at the Center for Inquiry Student Leadership Conference, and this is what he wrote on Unify's website. This interfaith of Edward Clint and his spectacular group over at the University of Illinois was purely secular. Is that here too? Awesome. It's completely secular. Over the course of that year, Ed's group, ISSA, did not have to juggle their principles, their service to their community, and their desire to engage in a dialogue with religious individuals to advance these ideals. Their outreach consisted of organized debates, supporting free speech rights by defending a Catholic professor, and at least one bake sale for Japanese earthquake and tsunami relief. In the process, they found the humanity in their fellow man, not in their faith or their creed. Their interfaith activities may as well have been called outreach or service. I hope that in this coming year, the UNI Freethinkers and Inquirers can emulate ISSA's success in bringing people together over shared values. But in our goal to become a voice for secular humanism, I think we must eschew the regressive ideas of interfaith activists. It's the people, not their faiths, that do good. And I love that. It's not just what he said, which is awesome, but it's promoting what another group did, another group member did, and using it as a model for your own group, for your own activism. And a lot of you have Facebook, Twitter, blogs, everything like that. Don't use it just as a promotional tool to promote your own activities or your group's activities. Consider promoting what all these other groups in the room are doing, because, even if it's far away from you, support your fellow freethinkers. And since we're on that topic, what happens if you dislike what another group does within our community, or what a particular individual in that group does? You don't have to be silent about that either, but I would suggest that you have some common courtesy and reach out to that person privately first. Call them or email them, let them know what you think, and listen to their response before you decide whether or not to take your disagreements to the rest of the world. If it's change that you're looking for, if you're trying to convince someone that they're wrong or they should see things your way, and if you think they might actually listen to you, I promise you their beliefs are more likely to change if you handle it privately and delicately. Right now, PC Meyer's tweeting that I'm totally wrong, but I can tell you I know that method works for me. And a case in point, Freedom from Religion Foundation gets a lot of emails about church-state violations, but they don't always sue first. Usually, they send a letter to the school or city council, they explain the problem, and they wait a certain amount of time to hear back. And ideally, the situation is cleared up before anyone else even knows about it. And then if the response doesn't come, that's when they get into attack mode. But they handle it privately first. And that's my point. Support your fellow freethinkers whenever you can, and if you don't like what they're doing, at least talk to them about it privately before you complain about it publicly. Number 4, help other people build communities of their own. Most of you here are lucky because you're part of a larger group, or maybe you started one. I remember when I was on the SSA board, one of the things we talked about was the importance of reaching out to off-campus groups, the adults, because they have organizing skills and they know what they're doing, so maybe they can help college groups grow. And the truth is, looking around this room and seeing what you guys are doing, most of the college groups are doing way more stuff and are way more organized than a lot of those off-campus groups. You guys know what you're doing. So let's pay it forward. Let me twist that around. If you're in a college group, consider helping your friends who are still in high school and who might also be atheists start their own group. And if you're in college and you know another college student at another school, help that person start a group, because you guys know what you're doing. Take the initiative and help them get that done this year. How amazing would it be if we go from like 250 SSA groups to like 500 by next year, because everyone talked to someone else. And my last point here, to those of you who are planning to graduate, and I know you're going to get emails from Liz and her team about how important it is to do succession planning and all that, but don't forget to plan for yourself either. Do not leave the movement when you graduate. Don't let this be the last activism that you do, because it's important to all of us. And that doesn't mean become a professional atheist, even though those opportunities may be out there and they're awesome if you can get them, but find a way to promote critical thinking and free thought in whatever you do. Maybe you make YouTube videos and you write a blog or make a podcast, but if you're going into marketing, you can always help groups like this create and distribute their materials. If you want to go to law school, consider specializing in the law that deals with civil liberties or religious freedom or nonprofit law, because trust me, we could use you. If you become a teacher, maybe you want to teach science and help students really understand evolution, or teach math and help them learn how to think logically. Or if you're pursuing medical school, we need people with MDs after their names who can counter all the pseudoscience that's out there, because Dr. Oz isn't cutting it. Or you can make sure that, when a woman wants a legal abortion in a state overrun by religious elected officials, maybe you're one of those courageous people who are trained to perform it. Or if you're going into journalism, how many times have we all had that good fortune of being publicized in the media only to read the article and be like, what the heck are they talking about? And be that person who fixes that. If you have a job that doesn't give you that opportunity, then do something else in your free time. Start a meetup group locally, or write your own book and put it up on Amazon for like 99 cents. And I promise you, if you put like vampire in the title, you'll become a millionaire. And then you could donate that money to all these groups. Find your own way to spread the message with whatever you're doing. So all of you have backbones, and I think all the people here could be equally deserving of this award. And if I'm fortunate to accept it this year, I'm doing it on behalf of all of you, because you're the heroes on the front line of activism. It's a lot easier for me to blog from the safety and the sanctity of my house than it is for you to table at your campus when people who disagree with you are standing feet away from you. You're doing the hard work, and I'm just always amazed by the level of outspokenness and activism I see in all of you. So thank you for being my inspiration to continue being a part of this movement. So thank you.